I'm sorry. And I love you.
I'm going to start with the beginning of the season first, because a good deal of time has passed between season 2 and season 3, and it was making me wonder, did you have any, I guess, big burning questions for the showrunners in terms of what happened during that time period so that when you started season 3, you kind of knew where they had to be?
I mean, not really. Like you said earlier, I think it's like, we can really just imagine. It's pretty easy to imagine what, like, how they've gotten to this point, and I think it's so on the nose to show it and to show them struggling and to keep doing what they were doing in the cabin. And so I think it's more interesting to see them thriving, because you're like, surely it can't be rainbows and sunshines, and like it can't, this is Yellowjackets that we're watching. And so it's even more eerie of a sentiment, because you know there's something even bigger underlying their current situation, and that it's just waiting. You're just waiting for it to explode into shambles.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. I really didn't either. I mean, I always talk to the showrunners at the beginning of a season just because I like to get as much information as I possibly can, and kind of like craft the arc of the character over the course of the entire season. I had some like logistical questions about like what, exactly how far away am I from them? Like if I scream, are they going to hear it? Or am I really that far away where, we have not crossed paths at all? Just some things like that, so I can kind of like get into the headspace of like an everyday routine. But no, I really think, I've said this a few times, I just think it was a very clever way to kind of progress the story. The audience is very quickly going to be able to fill in the blanks and catch up, and okay, great. Here we are, and like, let's hit the ground running. We don't have to spend an episode or two just like getting into how we got here.
Truly A+ time jump. Before I start to get into some specifics here, do you know which hut is Shauna's? Courtney just told me which one's Lottie's, and now I need to place them all.
So I'm the one right next to Lottie on the left side.
What does the door look like?
It has like a little curtain in the front. Yeah, it's the one right next to hers on the left, and has like a little curtain, and like it's very triangular, I guess.
She told me that Lottie's is the circle one, and it's like a third eye, and now I'm obsessed with that idea. These are some evergreen questions that I find myself asking every single time we do interviews for another season. Sophie, I'll give you the Shauna one first. I guess at the beginning, or even all throughout season 3, who does she respect the most?
I think that's a great question. I think she respects the most maybe Lottie, ironically. I think it's because I don't think she believes in what Lottie believes in, but there is this sense, and I think we will start seeing it as the season progresses, that they have this sort of like mutual respect for one another and some sort of like mutual understanding. And I think Lottie might be the only other character that actually also kind of has found herself in the wilderness the way that Shauna has, and that might want to actually stay there if they could, and so and I think Lottie also, because of all of her visions and woo stuff, sees Shauna for who she truly is and sees across the veneer that Shauna puts up. And so I don't think they agree, but I think they respect each other a lot.
I could see that in episode 4 when she changes her vote.
Yeah, you can see there's like, they've established certain eye contacts where Lottie knows where Shauna's going, and Shauna knows that if she has Lottie on her side, she has the entire group on her side. And so they start to sort of play off of each other. And I think it's a very interesting dynamic that's like very subliminal, but that will grow.
The power plays in this show. I have to rephrase it for Ben now. Mm-hmm. For him, which character on the show does he fear the most?
I think this one, unfortunately, which we see start to play out a little bit this season, not only because there's a quiet power to her, but also because I think she's the most erratic. Like she could literally go in any direction at any time, and it's like I'm afraid of snakes personally, and part of the reason is because you have no idea they can literally go anywhere they want at any time. And I kind of feel like that's how Shauna is. It's like turns on a dime. You may expect her to do one thing and she does the other thing. Like the tiniest little thing can set her off. So it's just, it's like a ticking time bomb, and you just don't know how it's going to play out.
You and Melanie are scary.
Yes.
in this show. She's got one line, I think it's like in episode 3 where she yells at Lottie, and I'm like, I feel that as a viewer. That just cut through me in like the most intense possible way. So, Stephen, I want to stick with you for a minute to highlight Alexa's work, because one of my absolute favorite things about these early episodes is we finally see her get to shine full force as Mari. And I guess the specific thing I wanted to ask you about that collaboration is what it was like for the two of you always maintaining, I guess, a degree of intensity, but being able to embrace some really effective comedic beats in there too.
I mean, I think that's the nature of our show, right? Like the writers do such a good job of layering in this like darkly comedic undertone and just kind of like undercurrent throughout all of the heavy stuff that happens in the show. And it was kind of a treat to be able to work with Alexa because, you know, we had like been in group scenes together and there's always this kind of antagonistic nature between our two characters. And so to kind of like isolate those two characters and to get the opportunity to just work like one-on-one in a very specific setting with her, A, it was unique. B, it was just something that was, I think, kind of unexpected, you know? Like, I always wondered how we were going to get from Ben being on his own to finding his way back to the group, and I didn't expect it to be the way that it was. So it was really poetic. I think it worked really well.
The two of you together was the pairing that I never realized I needed, but his way back to the group is just, it's harsh. I'll jump to that next, and I tend to overthink certain performance beats, so do tell me if I'm doing that here. But you have that big monologue in episode 4, and it's just so incredible. It's so good from start to finish. The particular part that really kind of caught my eye, though, is it's when you turn to Shauna and say, "I'm so fucking sorry, Shauna." And I just like, I feel it to my core. Then you have a really long beat where you don't say anything. What is it like for you figuring out what's going through his head and maybe why that's the point where he knows he, at least for how I interpret it, needs to stop and kind of reset?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, look, I think the scariest thing as any actor, which I would assume you'd agree with, is like when you see a scene and it's like 3 or 4 straight pages of mostly just you talking and you're like, oh man, like you're grateful to like, of course, have an opportunity to do all of that. At the same time, it's just like, how do you keep this like interesting and dynamic over the course of so much dialogue? And so I remember like getting to that beat and it was kind of like I had said everything I needed to say, and then you kind of like, I remember taking a moment of like looking around and like truly being, because I was absolutely amazed at what the set designers built, and looking around at that and just having that moment of being like, this is actually amazing. And I feel like if these are the last words I end up speaking, I want these young girls, you know, that I consider myself a mentor to actually hear some sort of positive reinforcement of like, you guys are kind of incredible. And I hope you know that.
What a beautiful but also heartbreaking beat there. I have to let you go. I could talk about your show all day long. I'll say big congratulations. Really, just
Thank you.